Okay, so now we have everything we need to do in order to add a cat in. Now we just need to write the code. The code to do that looks like this. We're going to make a new cat, and when we make a new cat, we're going to pass in data. So I'm going to say name, and let's go with George, and his age. Let's go with an older cat, 11, and temperament is grouchy. Just going off of my experience with cats. And then what we'll also do is save this to a variable. So we'll call it var George equals new cat, where name is George, age is 11, temperament is grouchy. So this doesn't actually add it to the database just yet. There's another step, which is george.save. And once we save, it will be added to the database. However, there's a possibility that it won't save. Let's say that our Mongo process isn't running for some reason, or the internet's not working on our machine. It might potentially not save. So rather than just saving it blindly, what we can do is pass a callback function into save. And this function will be called when the save is done, whether it worked or not. And it will give us two different things. The first is any potential error, and the second is, and let's not call it George, is the item that's returned, the item that was saved, and we'll just call it cat. And what we can do is check if there's an error. We'll just do a console.log. Something went wrong, just like that. Otherwise, let's do a console.log. We just saved a cat to the database, and then we'll also console.log the cat. All right, so there's a lot here. So let's walk through this one more time. Let's start with just the save. So what we're doing is trying to save George, the cat, to the database, and we're passing in this function that will be called once this is done. And this is a pattern that we're going to see all the time in Mongoose. So we'll have things like .find, and then we pass in a callback function to that. And then we'll do the same thing for .remove and for .create. And pretty much everything we do with Mongoose will involve a callback function. And that's because this takes time. JavaScript has to go and communicate with this process here and figure out if it went right or if it went wrong, and it takes time. So we have to use a callback in order to have code execute after this is done. Okay, so our callback takes two parameters. The first one is a potential error, and this will be empty, hopefully, but if not, then we're going to console.log something went wrong. Otherwise, we'll print out we just saved a cat to the database, and we'll print out the cat. Okay, a lot of stuff. So let's see how this goes. Let's try running this. Node cats.js. Okay, and we just saved a cat to the database, and we got the cat that we printed out with this line here. And you can see that we have an ID, temperament is grouchy, age 11, name is George. And I just want to highlight here, cat is referring to what came back from the database, because we also have George, and we could also console.log George if we wanted to, and we would see that it's slightly different. George is not what's coming from the database. George is what we have in JavaScript that we're trying to save to the database, and cat is what's being sent back from the database. So let me prove to you that this worked. We can open up our Mongo console, and then if we do show DBs, we now have cat app, so we can use cat app. And then what we can do is show collections first, and we have cats, which was automatically created by pluralizing this. And then let's just do a db.cats.findAll, and we have our new cat here, George. Okay, let's exit out, and now let's create one more cat. So we'll change the name of the cat from George to Mrs. Norris, which is the cat from Harry Potter, Filch's cat, and I have no idea how old she is. Let's just say 7, although it's probably much older than that, and her temperament will be evil. Although, to be fair, we could say that about every cat ever in the history of the world. And yes, it still says George, and that's fine, because this doesn't actually impact anything. It's just the name of the variable on the JavaScript side of things. But remember, we're just writing JavaScript, but then we're saving it here, and it takes the data inside and sends that to Mongo and saves it in the database. But this has nothing to do with it. That's just how we refer to it inside of our code. Okay, so let's try the same thing. Try and save that cat again. Run node app.js or cats.js. Okay, and we just saved another cat to the database and an ID, temperament is evil, age 7, name is Mrs. Norris. Okay, so that's how we can add cats to the database. The next important feature is retrieving cats from the database. And to do that, we'll go back here. And down here, I'm going to show you a new method. And actually, I'm going to comment this out. Otherwise, every time we run this code, we'll get a new cat in our database. And that's fine, but I only can have one Mrs. Norris at a time. I don't want to have 5 or 6 of them running around in our database. So I'm going to comment it out for now. So down here, what we need to do is use the find method on cat, which was our model we defined right here. So cat.find, and we're just going to pass in an empty object, and then the callback function. And this callback function is just like the other one, where we take the error as the first parameter, if there is a potential error, and we'll check, so we can start there. If there's an error, let's do console.log, oh no, error, and then we'll also print out the error itself. Otherwise, let's pass in this second parameter, which is going to be the result of the .find, which would be hopefully multiple cats, although potentially just one cat, but we'll call it cats, totally up to us, just like this is up to us as well. Hopefully by now you're recognizing that anytime we have a callback, it's completely up to us to decide what to name these parameters. So we'll do else console.log cats. And let's just do that. And we'll add another one in here just to make it easier to see all the cats. Okay, and save that. And let's see if this works. So we're going to run cat.find, and we're passing in an empty object because we're not looking for any particular cats. We just want all of them. And then we're passing in the callback because remember, this takes some time or it might not work. There might be an error. So this code is executed when this is done. All right, and then we check if there's an error, we print it out. Otherwise, we print out the cats. Let's now make sure we have everything else commented out, except for the important stuff up here. And we'll clear the console and then run our file. There we go. So we get our all the cats console.log, and we get an array that has 2 different cats in it. Great. So I'm going to show you one more thing we can do to create a cat rather than doing it in 2 separate steps like we have here, where we're making a new cat and then running save on that cat. What we can also do, I'll comment this out for now, all of this actually, is use a method create, which is just like find. So it's cat.create, and this is basically new and save all at once. So rather than making it new first and then saving it and making sure it works, we can just try it right away with create, which will make a new one and save it in the database. So let's do name, and I'm running out of ideas here. Let's just call our cat Snow White, and age is 15, which is a number. And miraculously, we found a cat whose temperament was nice. Nice is too strong of a word. Let's just go with bland. There we go. So we save it, and if we run this now, it might not work, but we'll have no way of knowing until we add in the callback here. So again, hopefully you're seeing this pattern. We're going to see it all the time. And then we'll do our if error, and we'll just do this nice and quick. Console.log error, else console.log cat. And remember, I called it cat because we're creating a single cat, versus down here I called it cats, but it's just a matter of what makes sense for a name. So in this case, cats made more sense. Here, cat makes more sense. But we could also call it new cat or newly created cat or returned cat, whatever we want. Okay, so save, and let's see if this works. So now what we've done is first right here, we've added this new cat that we created, and we got it back from the database, Snow White, age 15, bland temperament. And then we also left this code, we didn't comment it out, so we also went and found all of the cats in the database, and we got 3 different cats: Grouchy, Evil, and Bland. And yes, those could be their names. Technically, that's their temperament. Their names are George, Mrs. Norris, and Snow White. Okay, so we saw a lot of stuff here. Let's do a very quick recap. Let me shrink this down a bit. And let's start at the beginning. So what is Mongoose? Mongoose is what's known as an ODM, Object Data Mapper. And what that really means is that it's a way for us to write JavaScript inside of our JavaScript files, like our app.js or our Express files, and that JavaScript code will interact with our database. So it's basically a JavaScript layer on top of MongoDB. And it adds some extra fancy things in that we haven't really seen yet, but it has some extra special methods that makes it easier on us. And then we connected. The cat app database was created for us because it didn't exist. But next time we connect, and actually every time we've connected, aside from the first time we ran the file, we connected to the same cat app that already existed. And then we defined a schema, which is a plan for what a cat looks like, a name, age, and temperament. Now I didn't mention this, but we don't have to have a name, age, and temperament. If we left them blank, we wouldn't get any errors. But we can add that functionality in, and we will later. For instance, when we have a user signing up on our website, we don't want them to be able to leave password blank or email blank. We need both of them to be there. So there's a way to do that with Mongoose. And then we have what I think is the most confusing line conceptually, which is where we take the cat schema, the plan for a cat, and we compile it into a model, which returns an object that has a bunch of methods. So it knows about our plan, name, age, and temperament, but it also adds in things like create and find and a whole lot more methods. So then we save it to cat with a capital C, which is conventional to have it be a capital name there for our model. And then we did things like making a new cat and then saving it. And the key thing is the callback, where we have an error and then the data coming back. And then we did create as well, where we do cat.create, same exact idea. We have a callback, and then we have another method down here, .find. So I'll be showing you a few more methods as we go. The point is not really that you memorize the exact syntax of the methods, but just conceptually are clear on how this works. We install Mongoose, connect to a database, schema, model, and then we interact with the database. All right, so that's it for now. In the next video, I'm going to show you how we can add Mongoose to an Express app and interact with a database inside of an Express app.